3 is the third full-length album from Cancervo, a northern Italian doom metal band, who I would qualify with psychedelic rock influences early on, a stoner doom metal band proper in some ways, and with their second and third record, they've incorporated more of a traditional doom metal focused sound that has a bit of 70s rock flair to it, but mostly a haunting, ritualistic approach to a fairly surreal version of psychedelic doom metal that focuses in on themes of their locales and the folklore and urban legends of the area that they live in sort of the Bergamo area. What this band does is a little bit hard to have nailed down over time. I think this second record makes it a little bit more clear what they're all about. They call themselves Heavy Funeral Psych, and I guess that cues us into the mantra-driven, dirging version of stoner doom metal that they play, and that very much involves elements of traditional doom metal, to be sure, but not the Maryland style, to be sure, and not exactly the Italian horror style either. There's sort of a stoner doom metal element that keeps a very persistent and plodding tone throughout all of their songs, and most of them are increasing in length over time. The sort of droning side of Saturnalia Temple and the fixated, ever escalating visions of sleep do apply here, but they've been otherwise influenced by the stoned state of mind from 70s psychedelia, and you can tell their vocals are interested in creating a personality beyond the bluesy jams and the experimental feeling of their first record. So a lot has changed since their first record, but not that much has changed since 2023's 2. Now, I was a big fan of that record. I gave it sort of an above average score, but not too high above average. And I think that this record does well to produce a much more dynamic sound design. I think that it feels a little bit less wooden and more echoic and psychedelic in general. But the main thing that this new sound design does in the production on this third record is introduce a place where they can kind of go anywhere they want with these long form songs that are droning and fixated. So we'll get an example of that here with a clip and kind of go from there. So the big thing to note is that this band have always been telling a story of the place where they live, a story of the mountains above, which is their initial observation, either whether they're chasing a cryptid up a mountain or they're exploring the haunted locales and abandoned cities up in the mountains. They're showing you what the corners of these places where they live are all about, and the millennia of inhabitation that has sort of created these ghosts and goblins and whatnot. And in this sense, they're going down into the valley below and exploring. It makes for a much more serious and sort of possessed album, and I think it's kind of the character of this record is different from the second. It leans into the horror doom metal aspect a little bit more, and it makes for a record that is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more focused. So they use this setting to create something that is possessed. And I would say that it doesn't really go fully into the Italian horror doom genre, but it does create that sense of a little bit of wild possession as they stray through some of these songs. I think Your Child is probably the one that goes furthest in that sense. It has sort of a black metallic blast out, and there's this St. Vitus kind of wah pedal solo going on, and it's the peak of feeling to this record that I like, that it felt like they were embodying a character, they're telling a story. It's like you're sitting down with ghost stories of the Bergamo area here, sitting with psychedelic droning doom metal in the process. So it's not that complicated of an effect, but I think they're doing well to show that they've got more each time they put out a record. They're doing something a little bit different, pretty unique for this style, and I think they've got a lot of personality up front. I think the second record was already kind of there, and then this is maybe a more charismatic delivery upon that idea with bigger songs and bigger riffs. So, they could play with rhythm a bit more and all that, but I like the singular effect of this record. I like that it's very focused on telling its stories in a specific way that is not overthought. It's a very natural result from a band that likes to jam together, and I think that it just feels like an honest, we've got an idea and let's go for it kind of of thing, which is, I think, where this form of metal kind of best focuses. Fairly high marks for me. I would say this is a moderately high recommendation. I don't know how long it will last over time, but in the moment, it's a pretty exciting record to pick up. Fairly strong aesthetic, and I think the immersive value of it should be pretty obvious once you've sat with it. We'll see how it lasts over time. So that comes out this Friday on March 29th. Go ahead and check that out and read the review if you'd like more information.